Namaste, everyone. Very nice to see you all. It has been a while. I hope your studies are going well. I hope you all are doing well before your studies. Yes, today the topic is Pranayama for Ayurveda counselors. Before we begin, let's start the class with a few prayers as usual. Okay, if possible, wherever you are, sit up straight. You don't have to chant along with me. If you know the mantras, you can chant along with me with your eyes closed. ॐ वक्रतुण्डमहाकाय सूर्यकोटिसमप्रभ निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणी विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः. All right, let's begin. So today we are learning pranayama, just an introductory class, I would say, for Ayurveda counselors. Even if you're not a yoga teacher, even if you do not have much awareness about yoga techniques, yoga as a subject itself, this should give you an introduction for pranayama. I'm pretty sure you'll learn a lot about yoga in your AC 104 subject. Has that begun already? Have you guys been learning AC 104 or are you done with that? Anybody there? Okay. Okay. Whenever you do AC 104, you will come across many aspects of yoga, the Ashtanga yoga and many topics related to yoga, including the pranayama and the prana itself. But today I'll attempt to just give you guys an introduction and a few takeaways which you can already start implementing in your client consultation. So before we begin to talk about pranayama, the fundamental question, even if you are a yoga teacher, you can ask yourself is, what is prana? Because pranayama is reduced not only in the Western world, in the entire world, in the current day and age, it's sort of reduced as this breath work. Is it only breath work? Let's explore. So what is prana? Actually, when you look at the scriptures, when you look at the history of the history lineages and everything there is to know about yoga, breathwork is not the only aspect of pranayama. Breathwork is only a part of pranayama. It's like the ingredients are not the recipe, the cuisine itself. Ingredients are part of the dish that you are about to make. So breathwork, again, we are not excluding breathwork as not pranayama. Breathwork is pranayama, but it is only a small aspect of pranayama. Okay, and prana moves via the breath. This also we have figured it out. When we regulate the breath, our heart is beating fast, we are anxious, the blood is circulating really fast. When you regulate the breath, everything else calms down. Why is that? Because prana also moves through the breath, but breath alone is not prana. This we have to understand. This is the fundamental, because breath is equated to prana more often than not. But prana has multiple meanings. Just because breath is not prana does not mean prana is not breath, I don't want to confuse you with the definition, but Sanskrit dictionary has multiple meanings for prana. So depending on the context, whichever topic that you're studying, the context differs, right? For a topic, for a word. So that's how it is in the prana. That's how the entire Sanskrit language is. It changes based on the context, but it all groups together in the same family, the meanings, the applications, and everything. So prana, when we see our scriptures, it is viewed as this link between the gross body and the subtler bodies and the entire cosmos itself. Yes, the as Vaidya Manjulali, she's saying, the other Asian cultures call the prana through various names. So yes, coming back to the link, prana is viewed as the link between the gross body and the subtler bodies. Sthula Sharira, which is the gross body, and the subtler bodies are the Sukshma Sharira, and the entire cosmos. When we see the scriptures, there are two types of prana that are described. And when I say scriptures, it's a wide range of scriptures, which includes Vedas, which includes Upanishads, Yoga Sutras, Hatha Yoga Pradipika. There are a lot more scriptures, including the Bhagavad Gita too. So there are two types of prana that are described. One is the individual prana, which is viewed as the extension of the individual consciousness itself. Individual consciousness is our Atma. Cosmic prana. Cosmic prana is the second one, which is viewed as the extension of the universal consciousness, which is the Brahman. The Atman is the individual prana. The Brahman is viewed as the cosmic cosmic consciousness, and the cosmic prana is viewed as the extension of it. So simply put, prana can be translated as life energy or life itself. So it is not wrong if you call prana as life energy, or even if you call prana as life itself. In fact, in many of the southern Indian languages, prana means life. Literal meaning of the word prana in day-to-day usage. When they say a person has died, they say prana is not there anymore. That means life itself is not there anymore. Also, when it comes to not only the Ayurveda, in many of the other Vedas, prana, when viewed in the physical state as the wind energy or the vayu in the body, it is accompanied by 4 more vayus. Can you guys recollect what are the 4 vayus? Prana, and then there are 4 more. If you remember the sub-doshas. Yes, Udana, Apana. There are 2 more. Vyana, yes. Samana, excellent. Excellent, guys. Sorry for putting you guys on the spot. I think that was the quiz that you didn't expect. But yes, you guys did great. So yes, when we view prana in the physical state as the wind energy, it exists in many states, like we saw here. In all the bodies, in all the koshas, it exists in a different state. But in the physical state, when we see that as wind energy or vayu, it is accompanied by 4 more vayus. Yes, let's on continuing the topic of prana in the koshas. Let's see what happens when we do pranayama and what happens in each kosha. So again, we are not going into each kosha, but we are just briefly seeing the effects of pranayama on the gross body and the subtler body. So when we do pranayama, especially the Shanti pranayamas, the cleansing kind, so the tapas, the purification of the body and the mind, that is the primary effect that we can observe. So what is tapas? Tapas is derived from tapa. Tapa is heat. So this is not to say that pranayama, the only effect of pranayama is generation of heat. Tapas can also be viewed as ending of cycles or cleansing or purification, the simpler word. So this can be viewed as an effect on the physical or the gross body, the Annamaya kosha. or even the Pranamaya kosha, if you look deeper. And when we go further, the effect of pranayama reaches the mind, where the mind which is constantly distracted internally and externally. So in some of the scriptures, the mind is not the scriptures, some of the commentaries to the scriptures, it is said that mind has two eyes. One is internal and one is external. So whenever our eyes are distracted in two different directions, yeah, you know what happens. So you can't focus on a thing. That means you are distracted with everything. But through the pranayama, you can regulate that mind. And regulation of mind means dharana. Dharana is holding, the stability. So from that distraction, you are bringing that narrow focus. You are putting that blinders on. You're focusing, you're narrowing the perception, your visual boundaries, your perception boundaries. That is dharana. So regulation of mind happens in the subtler body as an effect of pranayama. And when you go even further, in the samadhi, dissolution of the mind happens as the final stage. So samadhi is where the object of focus and the one that is focusing, the seer and the seen, both merge. That may look like a complicated concept right now, but yeah, this, so pranayama leads to samadhi and then to moksha. Moksha is the liberation. So pranayama is viewed as the foundation for all these things. So let's simplify it further. Let's, without going too deep into the Ashtanga yoga, the dharana, samadhi, and all of that. Let's break it down in simpler way. Let's go to the gross body and the subtle body. So in the physical body, we have the inhalation and exhalation, which is a very common physiological process that happens, right? So when we inhale the oxygen, and when we exhale the carbon dioxide. This happens repeatedly through cycles. And when we are stressed, we tend to inhale more, hold on more, and then exhale far less. And we also tend to increase the frequency of this inhalation and exhalation. So the respiration rate increases when we are under stress. And there is this prana body, right? There is this subtle body. So there is this pranic inhale and pranic exhale also happening in cycles. So pranic inhale, what is pranic inhale? Whenever, not just this breathing in the physical state, the prana inhalation that is happening in the pranic body, that can be viewed as receiving life. So the inhalation is converted into receiving life, because every single time, remember the individual consciousness and the collective consciousness, both of these consciousness are interacting with each other through this body, through this matter. So between the consciousness, there is matter and energy, and there happens a lot of transactions which we cannot perceive together at once. But if we break it down to the pranic inhale and pranic exhale, what it essentially is nothing but the life that is being in the transactional state. So we are essentially receiving life and we are giving life. We are letting go of the opposition. So we are very similar to oxygen that we are inhaling, where imagine this as receiving the life itself. And as we are exhaling the oxygen, carbon dioxide, it's very similar to letting go of life, letting go of opposition. So what does our scriptures say? Let's see, what does our scriptures talk about when it comes to prana and pranayama. So there is this very important Upanishad in the Hindu philosophy schools. It says in the chapter 6, section 8, verse 2, it says, just as a bird tied to a rope flutters here and there, and when it cannot get any shelter anywhere, it surrenders itself to its bondage. In the same way, the mind runs in every direction. And when it fails to get a resting place anywhere, it surrenders itself to prana, the vital force. So essentially, the mind is tied to prana, it says. So mind and breath in our scriptures, and when I say breath here, it's prana. So the mind and breath are two sides of the same coin. When we regulate the breath, we are regulating the mind. When we are regulating the mind, we are regulating the body. So all of these are interlinked. So what does Hatha Yoga Pradipika say? So thus being established in asana and having control of the body, taking a balanced diet, pranayama should be practiced according to the instructions of the guru. So when is one ready for pranayama? So our scriptures, it has, it specifies prerequisites for certain things. And at the same time, it is not so direct when it comes to mentioning the prerequisites for certain practices. For example, if you see the Yoga Sutras, the very first sutra is Atha Yoga Anushasanam. That means, and then we begin yoga. That's the translation of it. And thus we begin yoga. So what does it mean? That means something else has happened as a process, as cross-checking of the student, that, okay, the student has met all of these prerequisites or the requirements to proceed further in this path of yoga. So that is what many commentaries say about this very first Yoga Sutra. Similarly, in this verse of Hatha Yoga Pradipika scripture, it talks about the prerequisites for pranayama. So for pranayama to happen without any ill effects on the practitioner, so there has to be sufficient asana practice and control of the body. There has to be a good balanced diet, the ahara vihara. Most importantly, it has to happen under the guidance of an instructor or a guru or a teacher. Because essentially pranayama is energy work, right? Whenever there is energy work, we need guidance. It's a space that is uncharted. It's not something that we have explored before. So wherever we go, for example, if you use Google Maps, so to a place, these days we use Google Maps even if we know the location. But if you specifically do not know the location, you use Google Maps, right? It's very similarly, you use the guidance of a guru to do this energy work. Essentially, yoga or any aspect of yoga is for spiritual liberation. Yoga is a moksha shastra. This was a revelation to me because half a decade ago, I thought, as probably billions on this planet has thought, that yoga is just asana. Asana, that means stretching, but yoga is moksha shastra. It is meant for liberation from all the limitations that we have on us, including this very body, which is limiting our life, right? So the body is essentially a trap. If you view it philosophically, the body is essentially a trap over your soul, right? I don't mean to talk about our body in a dark way, but that's how the body is viewed. It's viewed as a trap, bondage, but at the same time, this very bondage is used to liberate. Without this bondage, you cannot liberate because there is this duality as well. So yes, yoga is definitely, there is the spiritual aspect to it. The health benefits that we observe when we practice any kind of yoga, be it asana, pranayama, dhyana, anything, yamas and niyamas, when we practice it, the benefits that we see are the consequence, the health benefits that we see, decrease in weight, increase in self-control, and many things, emotional intelligence, emotional regulation, so all of these benefits are consequence of these practices. There is one more verse in Hatha Yoga Pradipika, which says the vital air does not pass in the middle channel because the nadis are full of impurities. So how can the state of anmani rise, and how can perfection or siddhi come about? So the middle channel, when they talk about middle channel, it is the Sushumna. So for the yoga teachers here in the group, there are three main nadi groups in the subtle body. So the first one is Ida. Let me type that in the chat. Ida, which is the left, Pingala, which is the right, Sushumna, as you can see on the screen, it is the middle group of nadis, which can only be awakened when the left and the right are balanced, when the Ida and the Pingala are balanced. So the left side is viewed as very similar to having the qualities of the moon. The Pingala is viewed as sun, heat. So the qualities are basically the duality that we see in the world gets divided into left and the right. And then the Sushumna Nadi is think of this as the centrist, the middle Nadi, which can only be awakened when the Ida and Pingala are balanced. So whenever we are in the extremes, we cannot activate the Sushumna Nadi. We have to meet halfway. So they're balanced when there are no more impurities in the body. So there are some people have left side problems and some people have right, some people have both. So whenever a practitioner works on the imbalances, this is what we are referring to. This is similar to expecting the Agni to function normally when the Ama is present in the body. So this is an analogy that I use to understand the Sushumna Nadi. So we cannot expect the Sushumna Nadi to be awakened. It's like expecting the Agni to work normally when there is Ama present in the body. So if you try to correct the Agni without removing the Ama, without digesting the Ama and removing the Ama, Agni will not work, right? So very similarly, we want to balance the Ida and Pingala before trying to activate the Sushumna. This is one of the primary reasons. There is one more verse which says, by proper practice of pranayama, etc., all diseases are eradicated. Through improper practice, all diseases can arise. So that's why the practice of pranayama has to be done under a proper guru, proper instructor, because there are certain prerequisites that are supposed to be met. And the current state of practitioner is of paramount importance before beginning the practice. And slow and steady is the way to go when it comes to pranayama. As I mentioned, we need an experienced teacher to guide us through the highs and lows of the pranayama. That is why it's very important. When we talk about the Kundalini, the balancing of the chakras, and all these energetical terms that we we use casually, and all the energetical practices that we try to do without understanding what it requires from us. It's better to proceed with caution than with none. There is one more verse which says, when all the nadis and chakras which are full of impurities are purified, then the yogi is able to retain the prana. This is also from the Hatha Yoga Pradipika. Retaining prana is viewed as the mastery over life. Chakra imbalances, chakras are where your nadis meet, right? There are many mini chakras in the body, and then there are macro, the bigger chakras in the body, the 7, the 8 chakras. Many textbooks describe these 7 chakras. So chakra imbalances are actually a result of various physical and mental ailments. It can be vice versa. The physical and mental ailments affect our chakra imbalances, or the chakra imbalances might affect the physical and mental ailments. So there is this doctor, Hiroshi Motoyama. So he had developed this apparatus called AMI, apparatus for meridian identification. Apparently, that device could identify the meridian or chakra imbalances, like a physical apparatus which could scan the body, just like how we can get an X-ray or a CAT scan or an MRI. It could scan our body and identify the meridian chakra imbalances. This was actually not so. It's not well known everywhere, but this was one of the topics which are shared in many of the energy healing, whenever these energy healing topics are discussed. So you can probably have a look at it if you're curious. So before proceeding, let's talk about oxidative stress for a while. So the free radicals, that actually are responsible for the oxidative stress, what they do in the body is they damage the cell. And how do they end up doing that? It is because they prevent the normal and important functioning, functions that are supposed to happen, cellular processes. So they prevent that, and they also block major enzymes and their functions from happening. So free radicals, we usually view them as, when we visualize, we view them as just attacking other cells. But what they're essentially doing is preventing the regular cells from functioning properly. So we can probably, this is my guess, this is my opinion, this is not based on any textbook. We can probably understand free radicals as ama. So this could be the Ayurvedic equivalent of the the ama, the undigested food that is clogging the channels. And higher the metabolism, the higher the oxidative stress. The meaning, think of this as Tikshna Agni. So the more the Agni is higher, or the more the Agni is irregular, so the more the oxidative stress. This is also coming from a point that I recently attended a course on pranayama where the teacher was mentioning how, in the current day and age, we are actually inhaling and exhaling much more than before, like a decade ago. So all of these are adding to the stress in the body and the mind. So how can pranayama be used for psychosomatic diseases? So psychosomatic, they have the origin in the mind and then they show up in the body. So we usually misunderstand these diseases as hereditary or just, the root cause being the gene. Actually, the environment also has a role to play in the disease through learned behaviors. So if the parents have a tendency to eat sweet junk food a lot, the children also habitually eat a lot of junk food. And then when the children also acquire hereditary diseases, this so-called hereditary diseases like type 2 diabetes, it's actually more of a learned behavior than hereditary or genes. So this is being widely researched in the field of epigenetics, where, as the name itself says, the epigenetics, that which is beyond the gene. So it essentially says that we are not just our genes, we are much more than our genes. So thus, one of the primary qualities of psychosomatic diseases is that the mind is usually affected first. The mind is already programmed to behave in a certain way, and it behaves, and thus the body acquires the disease. And in that state, the person is usually unaware. When the mind is affected, the person is usually unaware. And when the symptoms show up in the body, then the person becomes aware of what is happening. There is a disease that is showing up in the body. There has to be some correction and balance that is needed, etc. So that's when the therapies are sought, right? But along with the bodily therapies, if we focus on the mind, the body also balances itself and probably balances much more faster. And as I mentioned before, mind and breath are two sides of the same coin. This is actually written in many of the scripts too. So balancing one can definitely help to balance the other, but knowing us, and we know the phrase monkey mind. So if it was easier to control the mind first, we would have done it, more commonly. But controlling the mind through breath is more doable, approachable, and easier than controlling the mind directly. Okay, some research studies, just to tell you how effective some of the basic pranayama techniques are. So there was this case study, there was this research done on hypertensive subjects. So there were more than 100, there were approximately 300 plus people taken. Out of those, 100 plus people were hypertensive, who had blood pressure of 140 by 90. So this was actually a prerequisite to consider them as hypertensive. After 3 months of pranayama, their oxidative stress parameters reduced, and including the BP, it reduced significantly. I have also linked the article here. So this, though it mentions an alternative pranayama as an alternative supportive therapy for oxidative stress, I would say this becomes one of the, if doctors understood or if the ones who prescribed the medication understood, or if more research was done on this, this would have probably been prescribed as one of the medicine. If you asked your doctor if he or she gave you 4 or 5 medications, you wouldn't necessarily ask them which one is optional, right? So very similarly, if pranayama was given, just not even pranayama, just effective breathing was given as a prescription, many would take this very seriously. So we definitely need more research for sure. But yes, and there was another research done on athletes. So they were monitored during an exhaustive training session. Why are we even considering a research study which was done on athletes? Athletes go through a lot of physical stress. So when we do an hour of exercise, or 3 or 4 times when we exercise in a week, it is not much. But these athletes stress their body, they put their body through a lot. They probably exercise many hours in a day. So there is significant oxidative stress in their body already. So 16 of these athletes were monitored during one of these exhaustive training sessions, and they were later divided into 2 groups of 8. The first group was made to perform 60 minutes of diaphragmatic breathing, while the other group just sat in silence. They didn't do any specific breathing, they just rested. The first group was observed to have significantly low cortisol, melatonin, the consequence of which is reduced oxidative stress. So diaphragmatic breathing is one of the primary requisites actually to control your respiration and then control your mind. So again, we are coming back to controlling the breath. Through that, we are controlling the energy and the mind. So what can you take away from all of these topics, all of the information? So what breath techniques can you safely teach your clients, even if you're not a yoga teacher? And I'm consciously using the word breath here, because instead of teaching them advanced pranayama techniques, you can actually bring a lot of difference in their life, in their symptoms, by just teaching them simple breathing techniques. So the first one you can definitely try on yourself, on your family and your friends and your clients is deep, slow breathing, DSB. So what you can do here is 4 counts in, preferably diaphragmatic, where your belly expands like a balloon. Diaphragmatic breathing is where your belly expands like a balloon when you inhale, and when you exhale, your belly goes back in. Like a baby. Observe a baby. If you're ever confused what should happen during inhalation and exhalation, just observe a baby which is asleep, you'll know. So when you're doing a deep sleep breathing, all you have to remember is 4 counts in, 6 counts out. If this is challenging, reduce it to how many hour counts you are actually capable of. It can be 2 and 4. It can be, the idea is to have 1 or 2 counts in excess for exhalation than for inhalation. So if this is challenging, do equal counts of deep breathing, 2 counts in, 2 counts out, or 3 counts in, 3 counts out. But if possible, if you can, without putting your body in stress, this is a very important point. Whenever you practice any pranayama technique, your body shouldn't go through any measurable stress, any duress, anything basically. So you have to do this at ease. So 4 counts in, 6 counts out. The next level, which brings even more relaxation, calming. So it actually significantly reduces the heart rate, the palpitations, the anxiety, so overthinking. Name anything which is linked to hyper work of the mind. You can work that with humming. So the one of the primary symptoms of someone who is going through anxiety is they are taking the breaths in, but the exhalation is far less in the duration and frequency compared to inhalation. So that is what they're breathing faster. At the same time, they're exhaling shorter. So for them, humming can be a very excellent exercise where they're actively made to breathe out, and it is also not so challenging for them at the same time. So the same exercise, deep slow breathing, you can do that where you're exhaling. The 6 counts exhalation is done with humming. So this is not Brahmari, this is not the bumblebee breath that we do. But yes, this I would say, if the person has not done Brahmari, this can be equally effective as Brahmari. And the third technique that you can also try yourself and for others, if they have a lot of trouble regulating the mind and the body, is double inhalation. So you take one inhalation and then you basically fill up more. Like how you make sure you fill up the fuel in your car, you top off the tank. So very similarly, you just inhale, again, preferably diaphragmatic, and then you inhale some more through the nose. So both the inhalations are through the nose, followed by a long sigh. So you just exhale through the mouth. So this also is based on a lot of case studies where the participant had a lot of anxiety symptoms. And when this is called the physiological sigh, the double inhalation followed by long sigh with the mouth. So this significantly reduced all of the anxiety related symptoms. One more is using prone position. Prone is on your belly. So when you lie down on your belly on the floor, that is prone position. So you can try. Child pose is not exactly prone, but your body is facing down. Child's pose is good, but some people still cannot breathe in the child's pose, especially if they have a heavier chest or if they cannot sit down comfortably, if they have ankle inflexibility. So this balasana or child's pose may not be comfortable for them. For them, you can try crocodile pose as well. This is the proper prone position where your belly is on the floor. They're lying down on the mat, and then you can make a pillow out of your forearms, one on top of the other, and then you can rest your forehead on that. So crocodile pose is also, helps to breathe deeper. And then, of course, the Brahmari itself. But if you're aware of the Brahmari technique, the bumblebee technique, please teach it to your clients only after learning the contraindications. If the person has very well progressed in any of the mental, psychological disease, Brahmari may do more harm than good. So it is one of those pranayama where your body also has to be supportive. Sure, it definitely reduces a lot of symptoms, a lot of anxiety symptoms, but it can also open a can of worms for which you're not ready to handle. So you want to be very cautious when you're teaching a technique like Brahmari, even if they appear very harmless. I'm not trying to scare you, but just go very easy. And even if you're teaching Brahmari, if your intuition tells you that it's okay to teach your clients Brahmari or the bumblebee breath, take it very easy. Start with say 6 counts and then give a break and then do 6 more. If that is challenging, break it down further. Okay, the contraindications. So like I mentioned, if the person has any advanced psychological or mental disorders, I would avoid teaching techniques like Brahmari directly without any other supportive practices like stretching, prone breathing, shavasana, and so on, And also, if there are any respiratory issues, especially advanced respiratory issues, specifically symptoms which also show high ama in the body and mind, please avoid teaching the breath retention. Breath retention here also may cause more harm than good. And this physiological sigh, which I spoke about, so this can be quite helpful, even in the cases of respiratory issues. So again, the duration of the inhalation can be shorter, of course, but the breaths that are let out can be made slightly, longer. And then where the breath is a challenge, so where the client is not able to concentrate or where it is intimidating to use breath. So a client who has anxiety issues, for them, if you try to guide them through breathing techniques, it can be quite intimidating for them because thoughts and breath are interlinked, right? So they have excessive thoughts. If you put them in a in an isolated environment where they're with their breath alone, that can be quite intimidating for them. So use sound there. Sound occupies that void, that excessive void or even excessive thoughts that goes on in the mind. So use sound, like I mentioned, where breath is a challenge. Feel free to use the sound. Sound can be very therapeutic. And of course, avoid teaching advanced techniques. Whenever you're in doubt, just check the client's ahara vihara. If the ahara vihara isn't supportive of the techniques, you can avoid the advanced techniques. If you're a yoga teacher and you're contemplating teaching the advanced techniques, there are some references I have shared here. But yes, pranayama is more of a spiritual practice than that which is done for health alone. But of course, that doesn't mean you can't use the pranayama for health benefits. So these are my views and what I have learned so far. I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, let me know. So how many of you are using pranayama techniques for your clients? How many of you are suggesting techniques? Have you suggested any and have you seen results? Okay, you're sharing YouTube link. Alternate nose, yes, Nadi Shodhana. No, you can definitely suggest the Nadi Shodhana, Alicia, but just again, just check the Rahara Vihara, just see if it is supportive. Yes, just going through a good share of YouTube playlist videos and then sharing with the clients is also really good. That's great, Jesse. So just another point, so this, even I wasn't aware just until a few months ago. So the exhalation is actually viewed as the tapas that I mentioned. Exhalation is viewed as a tapas. So why is, I was hoping some of you would ask me this question, 4 counts in, 6 counts out. Why do we exhale for longer, exhale longer than inhale? This is because it is in the spiritual, when we view this spiritually, the exhalation is viewed as something like atonement. So prayashchitta, when we let out more than accumulate, so we are essentially getting rid of our karma. So this is based on a scripture called Dharma Sutra. So that's where it is from. So exhalation is viewed as something like atonement to your sins or something, you know. So where you're actually reducing the burden of your karma. So I found that quite interesting. So you can try this out on yourself. If you have a steady breath and you have breath control in general, try this out. Try this 4 counts in, 6 counts out. Try to reduce, if you have breath control already, breath awareness, try to reduce the number of breaths you take in a minute. And again, I'm highlighting, this is not to be done under stress or from the point of competition. Okay, I did 12 breaths in 1 minute, I have to reduce it to 6. That's not the point. You have to go very, very easily. You have to go step by step,
Hi, this is Nandini, and I've been working as in mental health, and I've been using the breath work in my clinic for many clients. As a tip, she, in Ashtanga Yoga, this pranayama comes in the 4th limb. Because of the reason, I just add you guys one more touch of it. Is the pranayama, they kept it 4th limb because the reason it is previous one is the asana. When the muscle are kind of has the control, the mind will start coming together through your breath. Then that's why it comes after that is the kind of like in the 5th limb is the dharana. Then letting go-ness will come. Because once the muscle is in the way of you want to take the direction, imagine the touristings, anyone you're doing is the detoxifications. So cleansing part happens. So when you add your cleansing and your breath exhalation, as she mentioned a few minutes back, is you're letting go your karma, because the detoxification is kind of like,
Nandini, hey, this is Manjulali. We have a few minutes left. I'm going to let Anuradha finish her class, and then you can do after she's done. Thank you.
Okay, Nandini, thanks for sharing. We'll come back to that, soon after the class. Okay, breathwork courses, Alicia will talk. I'll see if there is any. What time of day is good to practice, and how many times a day is suggested? So for any of such practices, the Sandhya Kala, early morning when the sun is about to rise and sun is about to set, they are really good. But any other time when your stomach is empty is also good to practice all this. The basic deep slow breathing, you're okay to do it any time of the day.
Anu, do you want to show this next week instead of the other class, like with a video? That might make more sense.
Oh, sure. We can actually have a